It's where North Georgia comes to talk. It's the Martha Zoller Show on AM 550 and FM 102.9 WDUN.
It is the Martha Zoller Show. Rod Huey's here with me today. And joining me right now is Will Schofield. He's the superintendent of Hall County Schools. Will, I did not know you were the longest serving superintendent in Georgia. And yesterday you had a column about prioritizing emotional health and how we need to approach security. And it really is a very timely article considering what we all went through yesterday and what is happening in our schools today. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Well, good morning, Martha. Good morning, Rod. I think you just called me an old dude.
No.
She did.
Look,
She did.
You are not old.
Thank you, Rod. That's what I heard.
So, look, I mean, you are a visionary. You are a big idea person, and you always look 3 steps ahead. That's what I have always loved about you and what you've been able to accomplish at Hall County Schools. But let's talk a little bit about, because everybody's thinking even more this morning about security than they were yesterday or when the column came out. And you're saying we need to approach this in, I don't want to put words in your mouth, a more holistic way, that it shouldn't just be a hammer on a net. We've got to take a look at how we approach this totally.
Well, and Martha, first of all, I don't know that I'm 3 steps ahead. I think sometimes I'm 3 steps behind, and I tend to think very simply. I think it was Colin Powell who said one of the greatest gifts of leadership is to oversimplify. Metal detectors, additional cameras, razor wire. I just am convinced that while those things might make us feel a little better, at the end of the day, that is not what is going to keep us safe and not what's going to change the trajectory that we're on. By the same token, as much as I believe that all of these horrific events that we are experiencing, and let's just be real honest, this is not a school event. This is a theater event. This, as we saw yesterday, is a hospital event. It's a public places event. These all have emotional bases to them, and what you have is people that are tremendously dysregulated and don't know how to deal with their feelings, that are letting them spill out in incredibly terrible and horrific ways. So one of the things that we've done is, yes, we want our families and our community to feel like we've got locked doors and that we've got cameras and that we've got processes in place. But if we're just going to be real honest with each other, an individual who knows a facility and wants to get in it and do some harm is probably going to be able to get into that facility. Please don't hear me saying we shouldn't try to keep our facilities hard targets and keep them locked. Of course we should. But when we look at what we know about the last 5 to 10 years and these terrible events that have happened, the common denominator is not how many armed guards were around, and it's not how locked the doors were or how many cameras we had. It's that the individuals who committed these events, over 70% of them had diagnosable mental illness situations, and they weren't receiving treatment. And I would suggest that 100% of them had tremendous emotional issues going on that just were not being supported in ways that might have changed the outcome. So in our school district, we have doubled down over the last few years. By the way, there's, as much as I wish we could have 10 million more mental health therapists, it's not going to happen. We don't have the appetite for the budget. We don't have the people if we wanted them. There are skills we can teach people, and when I say skills, I'm not talking therapy. These are skills I wish somebody would have taught me when I was 12, 13 years old, because it would have changed my friendships, it would have changed my marriage, it would have changed the way I parented. But we are just very intentionally trying to teach young people these skills, which basically are a better way to handle the challenges that come along in life. And we somehow have to help our entire culture get out of this black and white thinking that you're good or you're bad, that you're right or you're wrong, that you're blue or you're red. And we are seeing some tremendous results with our young people in the Hall County School District, teaching them these dialectical skills.
And just what's an example or two of those, just so that we know what you're talking about?
Well, let's just jump to an extreme. How many counselors at our schools have I heard students come into their office and say, I want to die, and I want to live. I just want the pain to stop. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And what we're really trying to do is teach people that, and this is what dialectics is, that two seemingly opposite things can both be true at the same time. You, Martha, can believe one thing about the border. I can believe another about the border. And rather than you saying, Will, you're an idiot, and me saying, Martha, you just don't get it, perhaps there's an opportunity for us to say, something that you believe makes a lot of sense, but you know what? Something that I believe probably makes a lot of sense too. And so what we're really trying to help kids do is to be able to look at the situations in their life, not as black and white, not as good and bad, but accepting the reality of what's in front of you and realizing that you have control to make some decisions, to change your trajectory, to change your future, and that you're not a victim of circumstances.
It sounds a little bit like critical thinking. It sounds a little bit about, and I agree with you 100%, that because of a lot of the changes that have happened in schools, and we're all aware of them, families have changed, how people get back and forth to school have changed. Lord knows, social media has changed schools. All kinds of things have happened. And schools are a reflection of the families that send their children there, right? I mean, it's all of that. But you can still teach these core things, how to deal with problems, how to negotiate with problems, how to use your term, dialectics, where you can look at things in different ways. And I applaud you, Will, because yes, you've got to have the security features, but if you don't deal with the core problems, all the security in the world is not going to help.
Will, I was thinking about what you were saying, and I thought about the next step of that, the next level of that. You're teaching the children, or you're trying to teach the children in the time that you have with them, these skills. And imagine this, if those skills somehow get back to the home.
Rod, you've been reading our mail, because 2 years ago, we provided these skills and this training to about 400 students. This year, it's going to be about 1,100 students. And although the quantitative data from pre- and post-test is extremely positive, what excites me is boys and girls it's for middle and high schoolers right now that have been through these sessions. They will say things like, man, this has just changed my life, but I wish somebody could come to my house and teach this to my family. My family needs these skills. Our teachers, and again, we're talking about students today, but can we just be honest and say this is across all age levels?
Absolutely.
At one of our high schools that has about 90 teachers, 31 of the teachers came to the counseling department, and they said, we see the difference these skills are making in our students' lives. Why can't we have these lessons for the adults, for the teachers? And that was 31 that said out of 90, we would like to learn these skills because we know it would make us better teachers, better husbands, better wives, better mothers and fathers. And again, we just, the whole idea of scaling mental health therapy, it's just not going to be a reality. I mean, we could use 10 more million mental health therapists in this country. We don't have the training, we don't have the people interested, and we don't have the funds. But we can be teaching these fairly elemental skills. And in my case, I just am committed that we're going to find a way to teach these to young people because it's just been life-changing for a lot of these youngsters. And,
it is learning basic lessons, right, Will? My sister was a longtime middle school teacher in South Carolina, and her first school was in Greene County, and it was in 1968, and she was one of two white teachers in an all-black school, okay? Nice. And Mr. Breeding went on to be the first black person to work in the Georgia Department of Education, and went very high up in the Georgia Department of Education because of a program that he put in place for those children who everybody said this particular school system, everybody said these kids were going to fail. Everybody said these kids couldn't do anything. And this teacher, this mentor, this motivator, this principal had this It was we might call it character education today, but it really sounds a lot like what you're teaching, is that where he would have, in those days, it was easels. You know, he had easels with a word of the day, with a lesson, and he'd walk through the school and he'd encourage it, and the teachers taught it and the kids taught it, and these kids did better than anybody's kids. Not just better than black kids at the time, but better than anybody's kids. And they were able to expand it out for a period of time. And it was really a thing that changed her life as a teacher. And it was her first teaching job, you know, so it was such a great stroke of luck that she got the job at that school. It just happened to be close enough to where she and her husband were living, and it was a great opportunity. But he went on, and years later, I crossed paths with him, was able to talk to him about that, because me as a 10 or 11-year-old kid, because my sister was a lot older, I visited her at that school, and I remember seeing those easels and how it changed her life.
Wow. And my guess is, Martha, that it was fairly straightforward, that there was a lot of common sense involved.
Yes.
And it was something that people could get their arms around and say, you know what, that is a different way of looking at it.
But we can't lose track. We always have to relearn. And even though your field of expertise always loves the new ideas, and you need the new ideas, but the new ideas need to be foundationally supported by the common sense.
Well, and wasn't it Edison who said there's no such thing as a new idea? We're all in the business of taking something that's been discovered before and kind of repackaging and just making it appropriate for the daily times. You know, just in the last couple of weeks, we had a school nurse that was chuckling. She said a young lady at the high school level came into her office who's a frequent flyer because she's gotten into a fight or two in the past, but she's recently had this training, and she came in and she asked for a bag of ice, because one of the things you can do when you're feeling dysregulated and you're about to lose it is you can lash out at somebody and you can do tit for tat with them. But one of the things we've been teaching kids is you can use your five senses to calm yourself down, to get back into your prefrontal cortex and to think this thing out. So the young lady comes into the nurse's office and she said, "Can I get a bag of ice?" And she said, "Did you hurt yourself?" She said, "No, I just need to get back in my rational mind," she said, "because I'm about to lose it." And so the young lady puts the ice on her head. She sits in there for about 2-3 minutes, and the nurse says, "Would you like to see a counselor?" She said, "No, I'm good now. I'm going to go back." And before she left, she turned around and said, "I'll tell you what, those other girls better be glad I had those classes, or we'd have had a fight this morning." So, wow. so again, it's just a realization that we have a lot more options at our disposal than we think we do. You know, sometimes I think in this world that we're living in, where everything seems so overwhelmingly contentious, that our kids and our adults just need to remember that there are better ways, and we're going to keep trying to figure that out with your whole county school district. 2 questions.
Does a child need to exhibit some sort of behavior to be able to get into this program?
Absolutely not. And that's one of the other things. I mean, there's also, and it's unfortunate, but somebody suffering from clinical depression, somehow there's still a significant group of people that think that that's a stigma, that there's something wrong with that. Now, if I had type 2 diabetes, you wouldn't think anything of me getting some help. But if I have depression, there's still a piece of our culture that thinks, well, that's a sign of weakness. You're somehow broken. We've got to get over that. And what we have found with these skills groups is that everything from our high-flying kids that are going to go off to Georgia Tech or Duke next year, from students who are in a foster placement and dealing with their 4th or 5th home in the last 3 months, they equally are able to say, wow, this is changing my outlook and how I move forward. I mean, if we're real honest, every one of us at some point, usually on a fairly regular basis, is challenged by our thinking. Mm-hmm. And if we can get in the habit of examining that thinking and trying to do it in a better way, we can have better outcomes for all kids. So,
and Will, I look forward to this being expanded and that you be able to do what you need to do with this. Thank you so much for giving us your time today.
Oh, thank you all for what you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you. To hear the full versions of last week's Martha Zoller shows, go to the podcast page at accesswdun.com, and you can follow me on social media at Martha Zoller.